we've talked a lot about this in between media this season. There's going to be curveballs coming your way.
Hate's a strong word. I dislike Kirk Cousins more than probably any other quarterback. Because
I get a little bit of that rookie-itis,
I would have said, I would love some of what you're smoking.
Even though I strayed, I'm still stuck between an interpretation, what it all means. Can I make a difference or something different? My mind in prison, then I saw the vision. Played the field, it's no competition. Found success through the repetition. If it's impossible, stick to the mission. I'm just cruising through on my way to get it. I found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. Found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
So one thing that really sets us apart here is we're not afraid to talk about other things that maybe aren't super fantasy related.
Do what you can to become a better person, to become a better human.
All right. Greetings, everyone. It's Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. Both the spring and the NFL offseason are in full bloom today. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your destination for both some feel-good life and some mediocre fantasy football advice. I'm Seth Woolcock. You can find me on the Twitter bird at between_SethFF. Today on the show, I'm joined only by my two co-hosts, two of my best friends, Nate Polvo and Scott Rainier. Gentlemen, it's been a minute since the last time we've all been on, just the three of us. So why don't you introduce yourself to our audience once again, tell them where they can find you.
So, hey, I'm Nate. You all know me as Janate Jack FF, which is a play on my name, my wife's name, and my son's name. I didn't eat anybody, I promise. You can find me on Twitter at JanateJackFF. The content, obviously, here, the In Between Media. It's the only place I'm doing anything, gladfully and willfully. And Facebook, Instagram. I'm not brave enough to actually do any TikToking because that would involve skill and humor and being able to dance. So, yeah, I mean, that's me, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Scott Rainier. You can find me primarily on Twitter at MunderDifflinFF, which is a play on Dunder Mifflin, swapped. I write a column called The Mundies, also swap of the Dundies from the show The Office, for In Between Media. It's about a tri-weekly thing now. We'll see when the regular season rolls around. I'm doing this really fun YouTube series called Pulp Fantasy, this podcast, and I am dabbling a little bit with TikTok. I'm not dancing though, Nate. Dancing's not a requirement. Like I'm just doing kind of silly things.
I know. I'm nervous. TikTok is one of those mediums. It's like, it's funny and I love to watch it, but I don't know, man. It scares me.
Yeah.
I'm sure streaming scared you about 12 months ago too, Nate. So.
If you would have told me even 9 months ago that I'd be doing this and not be peeing my pants while doing it, I would have told you are crazy.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys being back on with me today. It really has been a full off season so far, and it's really only the beginning of April. A reminder that during the off season, we are a bi-weekly show. You can find us live right here, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Audio version always drops on Friday evening, so you can check that out on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, Deezer, wherever you're listening to your pods. We're there, so check us out. Today's episode, we're not going to be continuing our normal off-season session, so you're not going to hear any inspiring tales and any triumphant notes from us today. Just really wanted to break down this fantasy football news that's been really pouring in the last couple weeks. And guys, I think there's nowhere better to start than one of my favorite sections here on the show, Headline Hijinks. And Scott, you wrote a little bit about this in your last column, the Mundies. So since the last time we've talked here on the pod, there was a huge NFL trade. Obviously the Dolphins, they have given up the rights to the 103 pick in the upcoming NFL draft to the San Francisco 49ers. Then the Dolphins ended up trading back up. It was kind of like a draft day trade. If you guys have seen that movie with Kevin Costner, one of my favorites, took 3 picks, basically 3 number ones to get up to that 103 spot. San Francisco obviously has some plans. They're about to unroll here in a couple weeks. So excited to see what that brings. But Scott, can you help us break down this trade a little bit? Dolphins obviously moved back to 12 and then they moved back up. Eagles get involved. They go from the 6 back to the 12. A lot of fantasy implications here underlying, I feel like.
Yeah. So the title of my headline hijinks is "It Takes Tua to Tango." Did it? Tua? The Dolphins swim around in the first round of the 2021 NFL draft. I loved this move by the Dolphins, to be honest. I'm like, in my fantasy career, I love trading. Trades during the draft are always exciting in the NFL, and for one to happen a month, prior to the actual draft was exciting. I mean, this is, with what we do, it's exciting when news like this drops. So, this was kind of predicated with the trade they made a few years back when they traded Laramie Tunsil to the Texans. This number 3 overall pick was part of that deal, along with the second round pick this year, number 36 overall. So that kind of shows you sometimes when you make those big trades and you acquire those late picks, at the time it might be like, oh, this guy's totally worth it. But then here we are 2 years later, and the Dolphins are sitting pretty in my eyes. Good on the San Francisco Niners to trade up for a quarterback. Who that actually is, that's all over the place at this point. But as far as the Dolphins, they used that third pick. They traded back with the Eagles to number 12. Then they traded back up to number 6. I'm assuming probably to get either Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, whichever one might still be there. I've been doing a lot of looking. I kind of nerd out on the trades. Like, I don't go like, oh, hey, this is going to be the Dolphins' 5th round pick. I don't go that deep. But like, I like to look at the first round and just look at where teams are placed and look at, what team needs are. Look at, I look at a bunch of mock drafts that experts are doing and just kind of summarize all the information, make tables. Anyway, so yeah, I think, and I mean, when I first looked at it, it's like they are in a position where they could potentially trade that 6th pick again, trade back to a QB needy team. But I just think if Chase or Pitts are there, that there was a reason they traded back up to number 6. So you never know. An offer could blow them away. They could trade back because there could easily be one of the top 5 quarterbacks still there at 6, with the Bengals not likely taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
But I think they're, and one of the most important things for me, what this says is trading out of that number 3 spot originally means they are all good with Tua. That's their quarterback. Whether you agree with that or not, I happen to agree with that. I think there was a very short leash for some reason given to Tua in his rookie year that he spent the first chunk of hurt. I think Tua is the man, and I think this solidifies that. And they can get a huge weapon with this 6th overall pick. And they maintain that the 3rd round compensatory pick this year that they got for that original trade, they keep that. And they keep their 2023 first round that they got from the Niners. So to me, it was pretty masterful by the Dolphins.
Well, and so I'm curious. You're saying Kyle. You really think they'd go Kyle Pitts at 6 with Gesicki? I mean, they seem to really love Gesicki, but I suppose you can't pass up on a generational talent.
And this is based a little bit on mock drafts I've been looking at just across the industry, and Pitts is not lasting past them in any mock drafts I'm seeing. He is just not lasting past the Bengals or the Dolphins. I like Gesicki just as much as the next guy, but he's not Kyle Pitts.
That's true.
So, and I mean, having a stud tight end and then also another athletic, back end tight end 1 isn't the end of the world either. Personally, what I would like to see them do, like if I had my way, I'd like to see them take Jamar Chase if the Bengals don't. That's who I'd like to see them. I think that would be the best. I think that would be the best result for fantasy. I think that would be the best result for Tua.
I like Penny Sewell, man. I think they need to really improve that offensive line if they're going to get Tua out there. I know it's just boring.
I'm just kidding.
I believe in that O-line, man. I think. But, Scott, I think you're dead on. I think this is a great move for the Dolphins overall. I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy impact. If it is Kyle Pitts or Jahmyr Chase that go there, it's going to be nuts and a lot to talk about. Nate, you kind of discussed in your headline hijinks for this, your take from the Niners' point of view of things.
Yep. So my headline is mac and cheese time in the Bay Area. Mac Jones to become Kyle Shanahan's newest quarterback muse. And I know there's been a lot of talk, like, is it going to be Zach Wilson? Is Justin Fields maybe still going to be there at 3? I don't think it matters. I have a really close friend who is a college football nerd. And he's especially a huge Bama fan. And he swears that Mac Jones is the most pro-ready quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence in this draft. And it makes sense to me. I mean, so if you look at his stats from last season, he played 13 games. He had a 77.4% completion percentage. He had 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns in 13 games. And I know Alabama's a powerhouse, but like Shanahan's got to be drooling at that talent. Because Shanahan's not looking for somebody that's going to move around the pocket. He doesn't need mobility. That's something Zach Wilson brings to the table. They don't need that. Jimmy Garoppolo's not a super mobile quarterback, and he thought he was going to work in that system. They traded up to get a quarterback. I think that guy's Mac Jones. I love Mac. I'm huge on Mac Jones, and I wasn't until I talked to my buddy, and he really convinced me. He's like, "You think Tua's good? You think Tua's going to be good in the NFL? Mac Jones is going to be even better." I do think Tua is going to be good in the NFL. I think that he played a little bit scared last season. I mean, he shattered his hip in college. That's a terrifying injury, and you can't be confident on the field after that. I mean, at least not initially. I think Mac Jones is the guy. I think they traded up specifically to get Mac Jones. I think that he's pro-ready, and I think that Mac Jones is a guy who could win Offensive Rookie of the Year if he gets into that San Francisco system. I think he's talented enough, and I think that they have the weapons around them. Shout out to Herms. I think JaMychal Hasty is going to have a good year too. And I think he's going to be a big part of that offense rolling. Hasty and Jeff Wilson. But then you've got Deebo Samuel. You've got Brandon Ayuk. You've got George Kittle. That offense is no joke, and they were just riddled with injuries last year. And Garoppolo ain't it. And I think we can all agree Garoppolo ain't it. I don't think anybody thinks Garoppolo is the guy.
It just seems like a lot to move up and grab someone that doesn't look like a generational player. Like, I know what you're saying, Nate, and I think Mac Jones has a lot of those skills that we saw in Joe Burrow in 2019 and 2020 at LSU. So I am there with you. It's just when I see Justin Fields running around, I think that's a player I could see, giving up 3 first-round picks to move up for and acquire him. Have you seen that guy with his shirt off? Like, he doesn't look like a quarterback. Like,
have you seen Ben Roethlisberger with his shirt off? I mean, fair is fair
with his shirt off and a cigar.
So, Scott, where are you at on this? Because I obviously see Justin Fields as someone with a little more upside, kind of like a Kyler Murray type of player. Nate's really set on Mac Jones here. What do you think San Francisco is going to do with this 103, and why do you think they traded up so much for him?
When the trade first happened, my initial thought was, they traded up for Justin Fields. And there wasn't really a lot of doubt in my mind. Some doubt has crept in just because I've been paying attention to what everybody's been saying. And there's obviously, it's not necessarily not close that it's going to be Fields. I do still think it's going to be Justin Fields. Part of the reason I think that, and this is just speculation, like we do this, we sit at our chairs and try and think of what's going on in the mind of a GM, and we're thinking of it from a fantasy perspective. However, I don't think they needed to trade all the way up to 3 if they wanted Mac Jones. Now, they could have tried a trade to, not trade up quite as high, and it just didn't work out, so they went up to 3. But I still think they're going to take Justin Fields. I mean, I've heard the counter arguments, like the NFL readiness is one. The similarities to Matt Ryan, who Kyle Shanahan has history with, that's 2. The whole thing about which pro days they decided to go to doesn't really matter to me. The fact that they didn't go to Justin Fields and they did, you could interpret that in a lot of different ways. 1, we've already seen what we need to see from Justin Fields. 2, when they traded up to 3, they aren't going to give away that boatload of picks if they didn't already know who they were taking. Which, I mean, I don't necessarily, fully agree, but I don't think that necessarily tells us much, which pro day they went to. So anyway, long story short, I think they're going to go Justin Fields. That's my personal take. As a Seahawks fan, I still am undecided as to who I want them to take. Because part of me is like, as a Seahawks fan, I want them to take Mac Jones because I don't want my team to have to chase Justin Fields all over the field, like all the other teams have had to chase Russell Wilson all over the field.
Yeah.
Because anytime I watch a Seahawks game, I'm like, man, those other teams must be super frustrated because he never goes down. So, but I'm old enough to know that when you hope for something like that, it just bites you in the ass, and Mac Jones would just end up being a stud. So I'm not looking at it from a home team homer angle. I think he's the best, and this is all, of course, assuming that Zach Wilson goes number 2 to the New York Jets, which everybody and their dog says is going to happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and follow that for this conversation. But I think the best quarterback left after the first 2 is Justin Fields. That's my take.
Okay.
Well, I think Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. I mean, I
agree.
I just do. I would be I know everybody's talking about the Jets wanting Zach Wilson, and that would be a very New York Jets thing to do for that organization. But I think that if they're smart, I mean, really, they need to go Justin Fields here. And I think they will. I don't understand where all the Zach Wilson talk came from because I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Think
of Robert Saleh, Nate. Like he's a guy. He's
true
with Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, as you said a couple minutes ago, doesn't want a mobile guy technically. So I mean, maybe Saleh is kind of from that same mold a little bit. That's my only rationale. But like you said, Scott, it's kind of hard to pick GM's heads when there's so much that we don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw a really interesting question posted on Twitter. It was from the Undroppables. I think it was Jax Falcone, and he said he was saying we're going to be doing a mock draft. Do you want us to do this based on what we think will happen or what we want to happen? And I thought, that's a really actually an interesting question, and it would be kind of fun to sit around and do both. You know what I mean? That's just a little side note.
Yeah. And from the Eagles' perspective, guys, there is some news here as well. My headline coming from that Philadelphia point of view is, baby, don't hurts me no more. Philadelphia likely does not draft a quarterback in round 1. Jalen Hurts is the day 1 starter here for the Eagles in 2021. Gentlemen, I'll get your take on where you think Jalen Hurts falls in a redraft. We'll talk about that probably here a little bit later on as we unveil our mock draft that we recently did as well. But here, I think the big thing is for the Eagles to slide out of that 6th spot down to the 12. They obviously aren't targeting one of these big 4 or 5 quarterbacks that are likely going to be off the board in the first 10 picks. So it looks like Jalen Hurts is the guy. Scott, I know you were really hot on him last season. He came in, averaged 22.2 fantasy points per game in his 4 starts. That's QB 11 on points per game basis, gentlemen. And I think the big thing to take away from that is he played some real defenses during that span. New Orleans, Arizona, obviously Dallas. That's a crapshoot. They weren't a very good defense, but Washington had a very good defensive front, and it looks like Jalen Hurts. He's going to be the guy. I'm hoping Nick Sirianni kind of rebuilds the offensive line a little bit, and hopefully they traded back to grab one of those linemen that hopefully falls to 12. Nate, starting with you, where are you at on Jalen Hurts right now?
I'm pretty high on Hurts. Obviously they got rid of Wentz, who was going to be their guy. I agree with you. I think they moved back. They're going to grab one of those stud offensive linemen that's available because they've got to bolster that line. They have to. Yeah. They've got to protect Hurts because he's had some serious injuries in college too. I mean, the reason we saw Tua the first time is because he got hurt in the national championship game. So you don't want to see your lead guy getting beat up. I think in that offense, I don't understand why they re-signed Jordan Howard. That was weird. But I think Miles Sanders could have a big year with Hurts, and I think he's going to be a big help to Jalen Hurts. I think we're looking at Jalen Reagor about to have a breakout season with Hurts. I think that the Eagles could be a much better team this year with Jalen Hurts at the helm for the entirety of the season than they were last year.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't remember being super hot on Jalen Hurts last year. Maybe I was. I'm always going to value a running, a quarterback that can run like that, especially nowadays. Maybe a little bit higher than other people. But I still don't in redraft. I don't think he's quite a QB1. That's I think he's right at that threshold. He's kind of right at the end there with Stafford and Baker and those fellas. But then once you get into the top 10, I can't move him ahead of any of those guys. And again, this is based on a pretty limited sample size from him. But I think obviously this shows that Hurts is their guy for 2021 at least. There's not going to be a quarterback available at 12. I don't think they're going to go offensive line at 12. I think they're either going to go defense or wide receiver at 12. That's my personal opinion.
They could grab one of those stud quarterbacks.
What's that? Yeah, like Certain or who's the guy out of South Carolina? Just a monster of a JC Boyce.
Yeah.
You hit it there.
That's what I think. And part of the reason for that is their offensive line. The reason it was so subpar in 2020 is because two of their top-notch offensive linemen were hurt before the season even started.
Right.
One of them being, what's his name again? Let's see. I got it right here.
Brandon Graham was out, and
Brandon Brooks.
Yes.
That's the guy. That's the guy. Two-time Pro Bowler. I think in 2019 he was the highest-rated offensive guard ahead of Quentin Nelson, according to PFF. And he's back, and then the offensive lineman that they drafted out of Washington State, shout out Cougars, they're both going to be back. So I'm not saying that they don't address offensive line at all in the draft. I don't think they spend the number 12 pick on an offensive lineman. I mean, it depends on who's there. If for some reason there's some drastic fall for Sewell or Slater, then maybe. But I would say, whatever if Waddle or Devonta Smith is still there, if they're there at 12, they'd go that way, or one of those stud corners. That's just my guess. And I mean, I'm not pulling that out of some vast amount of research. That's also what a lot of the mocks also say. I'm just kind of summarizing it a little bit.
You guys look at us here talking about offensive linemen. We've come so far.
We will see what happens, gentlemen. As Cooter Doodle in the mentions kind of said, in redraft, QBs don't go early. They're falling. We just did a recent mock draft that we're actually going to unveil a little bit of our strategies heading into that. But I think Jalen Hurts, he was like an 11th or 12th round pick. So he's a guy, obviously he will climb the ladder a little bit. ADP is going to go up before August, but I still think you're going to get Jalen Hurts for a 9th or 10th round pick in redraft. And I'm really all about that personally, especially with the rushing upside there. But enough talk about that trade. That was an awesome one. If you want to read more about it, check over with Scott's recent Mondays article. It'll tell you all about it. What I do want to move on to, gentlemen, is I want to break down our recent mock draft that we did with a couple people in the industry. It was really thankful to have a lot of people, a lot of great minds to be in there. I want to kick us off with unveiling my roster for the team. It is on display for our viewers, and I'm going to go ahead and just read it real quick for our listeners as well. We have Taysom Hill at quarterback, Aaron Jones as the RB1. RB2 is going to be Miles Sanders, Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, Chase Claypool, TJ Hawkinson in the tight end slot. Flex is Travis Etienne. On the bench then is Kareem Hunt, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson, and Mike Davis. And my headline for how I approach this draft is let's go on the run. So I went RB here for my first 6 picks, and that feels about right to me this year. I'm really cool with getting like one elite wide receiver and then waiting somewhere between that 7th and 9th round range for my wide receiver 2. As you can see over there, I got Chase Claypool. He's slotted in as my day 1 wide receiver 2. Got him in the 7th round. Curtis Samuel in the 8th round. Robbie Anderson in the 9th. And there was a lot of value that was falling. So I'm really comfortable waiting for a wide receiver 2. I sat on quarterback until the last pick. I had to take one. So And Taysom Hill, he's just a guy I have in there. He's probably not going to be the day one starter, but just in case he is, he's a top 12 guy for me. And if not, I'll drop him, pick someone up like Sam Darnold or Cam Newton, someone who has a little bit of upside. But that's my team, guys. Do you have any thoughts on my strategy of going pretty RB heavy here early on?
Well, you're obviously not a zero RB guy.
I'll never criticize going RB heavy.
No, me either.
In this particular mock, I certainly did not. But yeah, ever since I started playing fantasy, like literally, if I make a pick at any point in the draft and it's not a running back, there's a little tiny piece of my brain that's like, oh, shit, you should have got a running back. You know, like it's just like I get more nervous about not having enough running backs, and I don't know if it's legitimate. It's just how I've always felt. Like I don't always draft that way. Yeah. But I'm never going to criticize someone for taking too many running backs.
You know, it's funny because I used to be the same way. This last year, I've really kind of I don't believe in like full on zero RB type drafting. I don't know, man. Like I get my first two guys, my two starters, and I kind of leave it at that. And I wait until the later rounds to maybe take a flyer on somebody. I mean, people who paid off last year. Think about James Robinson. We've had guys like that in the past who paid off late. And you have guys that people were reaching for early, like CEH, that didn't pay off at all. So that kind of has changed my strategy, though you did get Aaron Jones and Miles Sanders. So, I mean, that's a pretty good haul at running back.
Yeah. My rationale, I was at the 106. Best on the board for my personal board was Aaron Jones, Travis Kelce. Ended up going with Aaron Jones. I think, I know we talked a lot about that debate on the last show. I don't want to get back into that. I see Aaron Jones as a top 5 back this season because Jamal Williams out of the picture. I think his PPR value goes up. Miles Sanders, Scott, I know you're huge on him this year. I think he's in for a bounce back season. And Calvin Ridley, he's that guy that, just holding down the fort as always at the wide receiver 1 slot. Really happy if I can get him in any redrafts, in the middle of the 3rd round, which I did. I'll talk more about TJ Hawkinson later on in the show, but that was my approach to the draft. Hopefully it was valuable to a couple of listeners, valuable to our viewers as well. Scott, what was your approach to this draft, and what is specifically your headline for your team?
Well, my approach, and this is something I've been working on this year, kind of since joining all of y'all, I went into it without a I did not go into it with I'm gonna follow this strategy. I just kind of, from the 1.04, I just kind of let it play out. And Seth, I mean, you had said, you went pretty running back heavy, and what that, allowed me to do, not directly just you, mm-hmm. but my headline is I get a receiver, you get a receiver, everybody gets a receiver. Because I went pretty receiver heavy. At 1.04, I took Kamara, which I was, really being in a redraft league, being in the top 4 picks, I'm going to get a running back that I'm going to be super happy with. So I was super happy to get him in a PPR. And then I think in the next 4 rounds I went AJ Brown, Allen Robinson, DJ Moore, CeeDee Lamb. And that makes me very excited, that group of wide receivers. The other thing I had to be a little careful of, I've been doing a lot of dynasty strategy and mocks and startups and superflex. And so I really had to walk it back. Because when the draft first started, I was like, wait, nobody's taking quarterbacks. I was like, oh, that's right. This is 1 QB. So I went pretty wide receiver heavy. What that led to is, as you can see, I want to see who you put in my flex. Good. You didn't put my running back 3 in my flex because that's embarrassing. No, with my running back 2, I ended up going with Javonte Williams. It's a little bit risky. It's a rookie, but he's the second best rookie. Well, second or third best rookie running back in my opinion. So I think where I'm disciplined there a little bit is when I had a little less experience playing and a little less experience doing research and all this, listening to a lot of people who know a lot about fantasy football, that rookie-itis, that I'm gonna way overdraft this rookie because it's a rookie and he could be the next Saquon and win my league. And it's like, I've shied away from that a little bit. So I think I got Javonte in a good place. I think he was the best running back on the board at that time. But yeah, those 4 wide receivers, those are 4 of my favorite wide receivers. To have to be able to get my boy AJ Brown in the second round. And I mean, I know this isn't Dynasty, so it's not quite as much of a coup, but like I was very excited that he was still sitting there. But I will follow my sword. I did take James Conner as my third running back. And I mean, we've all done this, right? We've all clicked draft, and then immediately you're like, please come back. Please be 10 seconds ago. I was like, why did I pick James Conner? What went through my head? Like, I mean, I guess he hasn't been signed anywhere else yet. He could still come back and have some sort of a value. And I mean, I got him in the 9th round, so it's not like I really made a fool out of myself. But that makes me a little nervous having him as my RB3. So, But like I said in my show notes, I ended up getting Chuba Hubbard in the 13th. So that trophy's mine.
Awesome. And Scott, I really do like your roster here. I think you got a great value on Justin Herbert. I'm someone in 1 QB redrafts. I'm probably waiting till the close to the last pick for a QB, but Justin Herbert in the 7th round, that feels good to me. That feels like a really nice value. I like that a lot. Allen Robinson, he's kind of right in that mix he was last season, but I still like that pick a lot as well. But a little bit more of my rationale in redraft to go RB heavier at the beginning of the draft is just because I feel draft RB heavy and then trade for wide receivers, because you could grab like Javonte Williams, if he hits, you could trade him after a couple weeks and get a wide receiver one, a Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, someone that maybe win a couple rounds ahead of him. So I definitely like Javonte there. But overall, Scott, I think you took some really nice value here. Staying water and staying in between throughout your draft really allowed you to go for best available rather than need, which I think is a hard thing to do sometimes. So well done, my friend.
Yeah, it's not easy. I'm impressed with the CD Lamb at the 6'9". I mean, that's especially with Dak coming back. I don't think people are thinking about that when you're with CD Lamb and Michael Gallup as well. Getting him in the 10th round, like those guys, Michael Gallup was primed for a breakout, primed to have a huge season. He was right there, ready to go. Same thing with CD, and then Dak got hurt. But
yeah, I don't know if Michael Gallup was poised for a breakout, but CeeDee Lamb was for sure. He was a wide receiver one during Dak's tenure in 2020. But I mean, Michael Gallup, he did finish as a wide receiver 3, and he probably would have been even higher. So overall,
breakout relative, I guess.
Yeah. So Nate, why don't we go ahead and pull up your team, see how you did in this redraft?
The mock is still going, by the way.
Mock is still going. 10+ days in, we're still going.
It's the longest not super slow draft ever.
Nate, what was your headline and your strategy heading into this mock?
So a youth movement is kind of how I penned it. I went really young. I went with more rookies than I was expecting, and I'm not done because the draft ain't over. And with some second-year guys too. I grabbed Saquon with the 1-1. And I know that there's questions coming off this ACL tear, but I'm telling you, he's going to Adrian Peterson this season. Post ACL tear, dude's going to run for 2,000 yards. Like I can feel it in my soul that he's going to be enormous in that offense coming back. They need him so bad.
Retold offensive line and Joe Judge is legit. They've obviously added a little bit of down the field weapons as well in Kenny Golladay, which should open up some running lanes. So.
I know people hate on Daniel Jones, but I think he's actually has the potential to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. And I think part of that is the use of Saquon, and Judge is going to just probably run the hell out of him. So, I mean, you're looking at a ton of yards. Plus, he's a great pass catching back. So, I mean, that was a no-brainer for me at the 1-1. Being able to get Russell Wilson in the 5th round, I know it was a little early for a quarterback, but I saw it. I thought, if he's not in Seattle, I like him. If he is in Seattle, I like him. It's kind of a win-win situation with Russell Wilson. I don't care where he is. He's going to be good no matter what. It's like when Joe Montana went to the Chiefs. He's a great quarterback. He had 3 great seasons in Kansas City. And also, I got a text from Seth after I made that Gronk pick in the 6th round. He says, "Did you mean to do that? I'm sorry. Do you want me to reverse that?" He's like, No. I meant to do it. And you might think I'm crazy, but in a flex format where we build it as tight end premium in the beginning. And I just think that Gronk's a guy that's going to get a lot of targets. He had last season, the early part of the season, he wasn't great, but he was trying to get back into the flow after a year off in his CBD business. It wasn't really working out and admittedly wasn't taking it seriously. They just won a Super Bowl. They re-signed him in Tampa Bay. He's back with his buddy Tom. I think he's going to have a huge year. And to stack him with Waller in tight end premium, I mean, that's like, to me, that's a dream stack. And I think he probably would have lasted 7th round, but maybe not based on some of the people we're drafting with. And I know their love of Rob Gronkowski, just a handful of them. I'm really excited to have Rashad Bateman available to me on my bench. Wentz isn't a bad second quarterback option. And if something happens to Russ and I can fall back, or if Wentz just blows up, like I'm happy to roll him out. I have a feeling he could have a huge season in Indy. I think that system fits him, and I think he's got a lot of really talented weapons. And I just tried to stay young. I think this wide receiver class is going to be incredible and is going to impress endlessly, especially Jamar Chase. I'm really excited about Jamar Chase and Rashad Bateman.
Nate, initial thoughts back from me towards your team is I really liked the first 3 picks. I'm with you. I think Saquon can have a bounce back season. I don't know if I'm taking him over McCaffrey at the 101, but I still like the pick no matter what. Antonio Gibson, Darren Waller, that's a killer. If anyone's out there and in their redrafts around that 2-3 turn, and if you can come out with Darren Waller and a guy like Antonio Gibson, who's going to be a solid RB2, low end RB1, I think that's great value there.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Really, I guess where I kind of got lost a little bit was the Ja'Marr Chase pick. I think he's going to be great, and I have high expectations for him as well. But what we saw from like Justin Jefferson last season isn't normally the mold. Like, I just can't feel comfortable. Like, I took someone in my draft like Kareem Hunt or Curtis Samuel for the factor that I could not start Travis Etienne in week 1. Just right. Because those rookies normally take a little bit of time, especially with wide receivers. So, I mean, chances are he might end up in the Lions, so he could be the number 1 from day 1 and could have big fantasy numbers. I just like, Scott, are you comfortable with having a rookie as your wide receiver 1 in redraft, or does that scare you a little bit as well?
I mean, it would scare me, put it this way. It scares me. Like, I think Jamar Chase is the wide receiver 1 in this class. And I think Najee Harris is the running back 1. I'd be more comfortable with Najee Harris, having him there as opposed to having the number 1 wide receiver.
And that's fair.
Yeah. And I mean, this really is all, we're doing this pre-NFL draft. So it's
super speculative.
Right. But it's a little early for me, but like I said a few minutes ago, I mean, sometimes I will reach for those rookies. If I have that feeling about him. So only time will tell. I don't have it in front of me to see who else was available, in that time frame, to see, like if there's a receiver I would have taken over him at that point. So I'm not going to look that up. So little early for me, but I can't knock it. I mean, honestly, I think Gronk would have lasted a little bit longer, but you make some good points. It's tight end premium. To me, the 9th round in a 1 QB league to take a second QB is pretty early. I don't even think Dale F. Carp had his first QB by then. But you took him in the 9th round, and I don't get to criticize any 9th round picks in this mock because of my James Conner pick. So I'm in a timeout for that. So I'm just not even gonna touch that. But I agree with Seth. I mean, Saquon, Antonio, Darren Waller, like that's a great 1, 2, 3. First 3 picks. Like I would like if I was doing a redraft and that's who I ended up with, like that combination of players, I'd be super happy with that.
Well, and something I think I learned too is that I've done way too many startup drafts since the end of the season for Dynasty, and it's hard to get your brain out of that.
It really is.
It's really hard when you're I've still got 2 Dynasty startup drafts rolling right now.
Ooh, Gary's pulling out the receipts.
No, it's fine. I have the sleeper draft board up on here. I was just looking too. I mean, there are definitely guys that probably made more sense to take at that spot. This was kind of a gut. Like, I love Keenan Allen. but
Yeah.
his knees and his hips are an issue. He's been banged up. When he plays a full season, I love him, and he's been great, phenomenal even. I feel like Terry McLaurin, I love him, but the addition of Curtis Samuel makes me just a little nervous about McLaurin. Julio Jones, there's no way I won't touch him in redraft. I don't believe he's going to be much of anything ever again. I think he's too banged up. I think he's getting old, and I think there's Calvin Ridley. Adam Thielen is another one. I just kind of, with Justin Jefferson there, I just don't. I mean, he was a red zone hog last season, and I get that. I totally get that, but that's going to change. That's not going to carry into 2021. I can't imagine it will. I mean, and maybe it will, and maybe I'm totally wrong. But
I'm keeping receipts, Nate. I'm keeping receipts.
Yeah, I mean, for
Hey.
me, just if it were me at that spot, I would take Keenan, McLaurin, and I would take Julio. I mean, I wouldn't touch Julio in Dynasty, but I'd probably take him in redraft. Adam Thielen, but most definitely I would have taken Keenan or Scary Terry. I've got them as mid high end number twos.
All right. Well, Nate, thank you for allowing us to dissect your roster there a little bit. It's always
you mean roast me?
Nate, you're done over the open flame. I appreciate both your guys' perspective here. It's good to talk about redraft strategy, even if it is early in the season. Moving forward here, I would like to jump into our next segment, Sure Things Sleepers of the Week. This week, we're going to be talking about draft dodgers. These are sleepers that we're excited about, who have a lot to gain and a lot to lose from the upcoming NFL draft. Nate, since we took it so hard on you last time, how about you throw out your sleeper of the week, your draft dodger, someone who has a lot to lose here in the draft?
So I went with Christian Kirk, and here's why. So on paper, it looks like he should be blowing up. Larry Fitzgerald is gone. 72 vacated targets on the table. He was already in the mix in that offense. He was already productive, but people weren't really necessarily super high on him. I love him. I think he's a great receiver. I love him as long as they don't draft a wide receiver. I've seen a couple of NFL mocks that have the Cards taking either Kadarius Toney or Rashad Bateman with their 49th pick. The 49th pick in the second round. That makes me nervous for Christian Kirk, because if they do that, most likely with the talent they're bringing in with that second round pick, you're probably looking at him being all of a sudden going from wide receiver 2 behind Nuke to wide receiver 3 in that offense. And he's not going to get many of those 72 vacated targets. That's going to go to Toney, or it's going to go to Bateman. So I love him conditionally. Depends on what happens in the draft.
I think it's inevitable that the Cardinals will have to get a receiver at some point.
For sure.
Obviously, they did bring in the veteran AJ Green as well.
That's right. Yep.
So I was already kind of out on Kirk when I saw AJ Green. I know a lot of people don't see him threatened, and I totally understand that. But yeah, I think Christian Kirk, he's a guy. If a receiver is drafted, Christian Kirk has no redraft value and probably very little dynasty value at that point. I'm probably waving the flag if I own him.
Yeah, AJ Green isn't even a factor to me. I can't believe he's still in the league. I can't believe he signed anywhere, honestly. And it's not that he doesn't have talent. He does, but his ankles and his knees are bad. And as a wide receiver in the NFL, that's gonna continue to hamper you. So I don't think of him as even a factor in that offense.
Okay. And Scott, would you like to throw out your draft dodger, or would you like me to?
I'll go.
Get it done.
Yeah, so I want to preface this. This isn't somebody that I think is going to be a running back one. This is a player that's had some debate and some polarization lately on Twitter. But my sure thing sleeper draft dodger is Chase Edmonds. And that's based on the context of this segment where, if certain things happen in the draft, that all goes away. But if certain things don't happen in the draft, then I think he's an excellent sleeper for 2021. So kind of the knock on Chase Edmonds, and I mean, the knocks on Chase Edmonds are valid. You know, he has really never been the primary ball carrier in his time with Arizona. He's had 2 games where he was actually the primary back. One in 2019 against the Giants, where he did amass 126 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then this past year, he played 1 game as the primary back against the Dolphins, 25 carries, 70 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 catches, 18 yards. So part of it is, you know, could he handle it? And I think for that question by itself, I think the jury is out. We don't know. He's had 2 games to do it. But that leads right into one of the knocks. Well, why is it that there's only been 2 games? Well, probably because he's a better change of pace back than a primary back. You know, if he were going to take over that role, he would have by now. So there's that logic as well. But right now he's at the top of the depth chart. Eno Benjamin, I'm an Eno Benjamin fan. I'm a Pac-12 guy, so I'm an Eno Benjamin fan, but he's a round 7 running back. He didn't play a snap last year. He's a dynasty stash. He's not he might be the lead back for the Cardinals in 2021. I don't see that happening. So what it all comes down to is, do they take a running back in the draft? I mean, there's still, I guess, a chance they bring in a free agent, but right now it's looking more like the draft. And personally, I think they do. I don't think they're going to roll into the season with Chase Edmonds. But if they don't, I think he is. And I mean, it's not like if he doesn't, you know, he's just going to be this insane value, because other people will realize that he is the running back in Arizona. But I think just based on his lack of track record in that role, he could be a very good value if they don't draft. I would say they, you know, my guess would be they would use their 2nd or 3rd round pick on a running back. Maybe like a Trey Sermon or, you know,
Highland Hill.
Yeah, or something like that. Again, I mean, it's not just a complete death nail for Chase Edmonds, but he has shown he is very good at that change of pace role. I mean, he's been a borderline low-end RB2 in PPR, just playing that role. So he still has that value. So if they don't draft a running back, you know, could he be, you know, a league winner, as they say? I don't know. There's 2 games. There's 2 games to go by with him having more than like 10 carries. So, but I think it's just something to keep an eye on. If they don't draft a running back with a you know, mid to high draft capital, then he could have a larger share of the work next year.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think Chase Edmonds, he will be a value in redrafts, given they don't go out and get one of these big, you know, 3 or 4 running backs. I agree with you there, Scott. Great pick.
And I think regardless of what happens, he still is a value in redraft PPR as somebody that you can throw in your flex potentially. You know, people shy away when it's just not that bell cow, but it's like there really aren't many of those left nowadays. So if you can get Chase, you know, let's say they draft a running back and he just stays in his role. If you're in your redraft, Chase Edmonds is sitting there late, he's not a bad pickup in PPR.
Great. Thank you, Scott. And for my draft dodger, my sure thing sleeper of the week, I'm going to go with TJ Hawkinson. Hawk, he's a guy last year, he had 101 receptions or 101 targets, held an 18.8% target share during that time as well. So definitely on the higher end for tight ends, but we didn't see that leap that's going to put him in that upper echelon tier. What we could see that we could see that here in 2021 though. My big thing is right now, you look at these mocks, you're seeing a lot of the times the Lions are projected to grab Ja'Marr Chase. I could see that happening for sure. But I think if the Lions, they really want to be true to this rebuild, probably going out and grabbing a star wide receiver may not be the smartest thing to do. I got you know, hacked on a little bit earlier for suggesting that a team grabs a lineman in the top 10. But I'm going to do it again. I think that Detroit should retool their offensive line. Penei Sewell, he's a guy who's going to be there. There's a couple other linemen who are very, very good and could be in that top 10 as well. But if TJ Hawkinson is the guy and there is no Ja'Marr Chase on this team right now, there are 268 vacated targets. Yes, I said that correctly. 268 vacated targets on the Lions this season. Kenny Galladay's gone. Marvin Jones, Marvin Hall, Danny Amendola, Jesse James, That all equals 268. I'm sure there's some other players who aren't back as well. So it's probably even more. That's 49.9% of the targets here in Detroit are up for grabs. I think TJ Hawkinson, he's a guy you can go out, grab him in the 5th or 6th round, and it really might make a difference in your drafts. And he could be like a Darren Waller of this year, or, a George Kittle of a couple of years ago, and just really see that 3rd-year leap. So I'm excited for TJ Hawkinson. I think he has a lot to lose, though, because obviously if they do take Ja'Marr Chase in the 1st round, he obviously goes back to just being kind of one of those middle-of-the-road tight end ones.
Yeah, I'm for all those same reasons. I think Hawkinson could have a big year. I mean, DeAndre Swift also could catch 100 balls, depending on what they do.
Yeah.
But and I promise I wasn't knocking O linemen in the 1st round. I wanted Miami to take Ja'Marr Chase, but no, I mean, I think Bengals and Panthers likely go offensive line at this point. Mm-hmm. So, Hawkinson, I'll never forget it. That when he was a rookie, I picked him up late, and then I think between the draft and week 1, I dropped him for some no name, whatever. And then he had that first game in his rookie year where he had like 120 yards or 2 touchdowns. And those moments when you had the guy and he goes off after you drop him. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be putting up those types of numbers, but Goff's got to throw it somewhere. He's got to throw it somewhere.
Does he though?
Even if they do bring in, a top level rookie wide receiver, that it's still depleted. So, I think he's a good value, like you said, the fifth or 6th tight end off the board if you can get him there.
I think though, once we get to draft season, when the season gets closer, I don't think Hawkinson's going to be a value anymore.
That's true.
I think he's a guy you're going to be looking at, depending on your scoring formats and your league formats. He's a guy that's going in the 2nd and 3rd round, along with like a Todd Kelsey.
Yeah,
Travis Kelsey. I don't know why I do that, man.
I don't know if he would jump all the way up there in a non-tight end premium league. Tight end premium for sure. But
like I said, dependent on your league structure.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. But I'm definitely willing to invest. I'm willing to invest up to a 4th round pick in TJ Hawkinson, maybe even a late 3rd if there is no rookie wide receiver. Because right now it's Brashard Perryman, it's Tyrell Williams, and it's Quentin Cephas. So the ball has to go somewhere, as Scott said. So why not TJ Hawkinson? He's my draft dodger. Hopefully he evades it, but we'll see what happens here come the end of April. And gentlemen, time's running low in the show, but we have room for one final segment, and that's weekly advice. Today, I want to talk about a topic I've been seeing discussed a lot out on the interwebs the last couple weeks, and that's burnout and how to avoid burnout during the offseason. Gentlemen, how do you take this time during the fantasy football season? It's very early. We haven't seen the draft yet. So everything we've said so far on the show, we kind of had to preface that it could all change. So a lot of people, they kind of step away at this time. They kind of get burned out. What is your strategy as far as avoiding the burnout at this time of year? And what can you offer our listeners and viewers for that?
Scott, why don't you take the lead on this one?
All right. Well, I'm still figuring that out, to be honest. This is my first off season, fully, engulfed in fantasy football, So, I mean, years past, February and March, I'm just kind of sitting around doing nothing, honestly, sports wise. I'm not a huge NBA guy. I'm not a huge NHL guy yet. So I'm kind of having to figure that out as I go. I will tell you, when the season ended, I was having so much fun on Twitter. I was like, oh, it's going to get so boring. That is not true.
Not even close.
It did not get boring at all. There's some people that kind of, probably aren't as active because it's the off season. But I mean, with Dynasty and, trolls and fake accounts and all this kind of stuff, it stays super exciting. So what I guess what I've done is there's been just days here and there where, and this is more just in general with screens, not necessarily just fantasy football, where I just try and not be focused on the other, whether it's my phone or my laptop. You know, I'm not going to go all day like, oh, I'm never going to look at my phone today, but just be conscious of taking a break from that. Because for me, I don't think it's like, oh, I've been doing so much fantasy research that I'm burning out. It's more just like the death by 1,000 cuts of being in front of a screen all day and not getting enough fresh air, and not getting enough exercise, or forgetting to eat lunch, that kind of stuff. So I'm just trying to be conscious of it. I don't have some magic answer. I mean, I think I've already kind of experienced, there's been a couple of days in the last 3 weeks where, you know, I'm just like, I don't want to look at football news. And that's not how I normally feel. Right. So that's, you know, probably some of the early signs of that type of thing. But, you know, it's all about balance with anything you do. So I would just say if somebody's out there, and because I mean, it's difficult because you can be like really into it, and you might approach a burnout before you even realize it, you know? You know, I went through something similar when I got my new job that I've been at for a few years. First few months, I was loving it because it was different, it was new, and I was just gung ho. And then, like, you know, after a little while, it's just like, okay, I'm about to hit a wall. I need to check myself a little bit. So,
yeah,
you know, it's that type of thing. It's just self-awareness, you know, taking a break, doing other things. So.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. I mean, I am enjoying this so much. I can't imagine getting burned out. But what I just try to remember is with anything in life, if it's not fun, what are you even doing? And I'm having fun with it. And I've made so many like incredible friends in this space that I don't know. Like, I'm enjoying it so much. And if you're not, I guess that would be my advice. If you're not enjoying it, you probably should rethink what you're doing. And if you feel like you need that break and it's becoming too much, don't be afraid to take it. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, mock drafts on Sleeper, they're all going to be there tomorrow or next week if you need the break, or next month if you need the break. I've seen plenty of people in this industry that are like, I pieced out for the entirety of February because my brain simply could not handle it. And also, I have this adorable child who keeps me on my toes. So and he keeps me light and keeps me laughing and keeps me happy. And I remember that ultimately I'm doing all of this for him. My goal is to be a happy, mentally healthy person doing something that I love for a living, so that he doesn't have to be around someone who is insufferable and hates what they do every day.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I'm having fun with this. My ultimate goal is for this to be what I do for a living for the rest of my life. And that's fun because this is sports. We're we're in the sports media space. Like, how cool is that? You know, do you guys mind if I bring him on real quick?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Bring him on as, hey, what's up, Jack?
Hey, Jackson.
Hey, Jackson.
Can you say hi to everybody?
Hi.
Oh my gosh, spitting image. He's got the hat.
Hi, Jackson. How are you doing?
Good. We're going to the museum today.
Went to the zoo today.
Did you play in water at the museum, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you dig in sand?
Yeah.
And does Daddy love football a lot?
Yeah.
Maybe too much sometimes?
Jackson, do you have a favorite football team?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Who's your favorite football team, buddy? Who do we watch every Sunday? Is it the Broncos?
Yeah.
What do we say every Sunday? Do we say go Broncos? Yeah.
Connor.
What did he say?
I think he said Connor.
Oh.
All right, buddy. Can you tell everybody, bye, it was nice to see you.
Bye, it was nice to see you.
Bye, Jackson.
All right, buddy. I'll see you very soon, okay, buddy?
Thank you for making your guest debut, Jackson. We appreciate you. Take care. I want to round it out. Nate, thank you for bringing Jack on. I love that. That's amazing. Made my day. Always love seeing Jack. To round this discussion out as far as avoiding burnout, and I guess I can speak a little more to it as this is my this will be going into my 4th season within this space. My biggest advice is, Nate, I think you hit it really well to the first thing, as it's all going to be there tomorrow, whether it's the mocks, whether it's the live streams. You don't have to listen to us. Just give us a retweet, give us a like. No, I'm just kidding. No, we'll be there. We'll be there for the rest of the off season. Take the time that you need. Live in the moment. Continue to be present every day, no matter what you're doing. We do love what we do, so we don't fortunately experience this right now. But my one thing is, if you do, are experiencing this a little bit, my one thing my one suggestion would be change up what you're doing a little bit. I'm a big redraft guy. That's really my niche in this field. Is I'm really serious into redraft. But this is the time of year when I'm scouting rookies. I'm watching a lot of film. I'm watching a lot of film breakdown. I'm reading a lot of articles and columns on these rookies and trying to get really in that mindset. So I'm one of those guys, and we could talk about it a little bit more another day, but I'm one of those guys who I really don't do any rookie rankings or anything until after the draft. Landing spot means a lot to me. Cream of the crop does rise to the top, but like Justin Jefferson, he was a guy last year that I was super in on. Really liked his college tape, but I more liked the landing spot, if anything. So just try something new. If you're a dynasty guy, why don't you try out a little bit of redraft research? If you've never done IDP or Devi or campus to gridiron, anything like that, just try it out. Best ball leagues, there's a lot of different options for you in this space. And if all else fails, take a couple weeks breaks. Go on vacation with your family, your wife, your son, your daughter, whatever it may be, and just enjoy the present. I'm going to continue to do that myself here. Nate, Scott, I hope you guys continue to do that as well. And
can I add two last things really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
You brought up vacation. I'm just letting everyone know, because I'm typically on Twitter all day, every day, pretty much. I am going on vacation next week with my family. Seth just mentioned it. And we're actually driving from Seattle down to the Redwoods in California, and we're going to hug the Oregon coast on the way down and do a bunch of camping. So very excited about it, but I'll be pretty spotty. So I'm going to be checking in with y'all when I can. One other little tiny tip as far as getting overwhelmed. I personally like reading articles from, all the people I know, and then other articles that pique my interest. Take advantage of that bookmark function on Twitter. This isn't rocket science. I know I'm new to Twitter pretty, relatively, but I bookmark so many things, and I just read them later, and then I'm not overwhelmed by a million things to read. And a lot of times the people that write them, if you retweet them or like them later, it's helpful. So anyway, that last little tip. But so yeah, I will be a little bit off the grid for about a week. And yeah.
Scott, did you clear this with HR though?
Who?
HR.
I think so. Who is that?
I think
Seth too?
I think it's Seth.
No, that falls under our video editors, Sean and Michael Short. That's going to be their job. So we'll get them involved with it. Nate, any final thoughts here as we round out the show?
Just keep having fun. Keep it real. Keep on trucking.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to our audience tonight. And to build on Nate's final thought there, keep it in between until next time, y'all.